This episode is brought to you by Chirp, a wireless DePIN project that aims to connect the largest number of devices with the blockchain. If you like Web3 projects with real-world utility and you can't forgive yourself for missing Helium, here's a worthy competitor that gives you a second chance. Make sure to visit chirptoken.io and sign up for their early adopter NFT and minor waitlist. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub over here, and today we have the honor to have Mike Horton, CEO and founder of Geodnet, a company actually improving the GPS system at scale. Thanks so much for joining the podcast, Mike. Could we start about you introducing yourself and your background?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Horton. I'm the CEO and founder of the Geodnet Foundation and Geodnet Project. My background, I grew up in Austin, Texas, and moved to California, where I attended UC Berkeley and received a master's in electrical engineering. While receiving my master's, I started working on the field of navigation, also known as positioning or localization, depending on what application you're in. But this general field of figuring out where you are, where you're looking accurately, I've been working on my entire career. I got started on the Geodnet project about a little over 2.5 years ago after I had tried to work on building our network with Web 2 principles and realized that DePIN was the way to get it done.
Fellow electrical engineer as well, right? I graduated in electrical engineering here in the south of Brazil. And yeah, it's really cool how to see electrical engineers actually taking the world in a lot of different angles and different ways. The Geodnet is a project that I've been following for quite some time. I think is one super interesting, and the power of DePIN to scale the network and really build the solution is super interesting. Could you put in your own words, how would you explain actually what Geodnet is and what's trying to accomplish for like a 5-year-old?
Sounds good. So for the user of Geodnet, i.e. the person getting the data streams from the miners, the Web3 side, Geodnet improves the accuracy of your GPS by a factor of up to 200. It is used to precisely position people, and that's used across a lot of applications, both new and old. For the miner, for the person considering entering into the Geodnet project from the point of view of the crypto side, it offers a simple way to use your real estate on your roof in order to earn a cryptocurrency, the GOD token. And you simply set up a base station on the roof of your house or building with a clear sky view, and you start earning. The tokenomics are quite simple, and the requirements are quite simple. It's just to have a clear sky view with no obstructions of the sky and a decent internet connection, and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that's like quite a improvement on the GPS systems, right? Because maybe can you touch a bit, how does that work? I know that I have a GPS on my phone and GPS on my car, and then it tries to get information about like at least the triangulation from satellites on the sky. How does the GPS work, and how can the RTK system actually make it better? Am I doing the name right, RTK?
Yes, RTK stands for real-time kinematics, and Geodnet is on the cusp of having the world's largest RTK network. Through the DePIN principles, the network has grown extremely fast. And the way RTK works is really pretty simple to understand. It's kind of a differential system. So your phone is moving around, and while it's moving around, it's receiving satellite signals from not only GPS, which is actually the US satellites, but also GLONASS, which is the Russian satellites, also Galileo, which is European satellites, and also Beidou, which is Chinese satellites. And these satellite signals come to the ground, and as they come to the ground, they're affected by a number of different errors. And by having a differential system with a base station that's relatively close, like within 20 kilometers or so of the mobile device, you can cancel those common mode errors. And the most nefarious of those common mode errors is the space weather, which is caused by our sun, which activates the ionosphere and troposphere to basically create variable delays in the signals. So the base station is fixed and the mobile device is moving. And so they simply can subtract those two signals in the process of called RTK, and all those errors will cancel therein, increasing your accuracy by up to 200-fold.
Wow. Yeah. How many inches or centimeters that could be? Because usually I guess GPS would be like in terms of meters, right? Or I don't know how to say in the US, yards or...
Yeah, so it's nearby a base station. You can get 1 centimeter accuracy when you're outdoors and have good sky condition. And that is the core of why this technology was invented. To get this 1 centimeter accuracy was applications like surveying, where you really need to know where something is, and you want to mark that for, for a land boundary or for architecture or construction. You can imagine if you're building a building, knowing where things are to a couple meters, which is the standard GPS accuracy, is quite useless. You really need to be able to precisely indicate positions to sub-inch accuracy for building and construction. And that's where the technology got its start. But then as technology's evolved, we find more and more applications where it'd be really nice to know where you are. It can also improve very much the accuracy of your heading, or like where you're going. So you can think about cool applications like gaming and augmented reality, like your Pokemon. You'd like to see the Pokemon exactly where the Pokemon is. And so these are things that I think are future applications of RTK. The big challenge has been the equipment, and the installation of these stations prior to the DePIN model have been really, really expensive. And so the service of RTK has been reserved for very high-end applications like construction, where cost is not so much of an issue and hasn't been able to scale to mass markets. And Geodnet is helping both in the traditional applications, make the technology more affordable in developing worlds and so forth, and just making it more accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, as well as obviously focusing on some of these forward-looking applications, such as mobility, consumer robots, and ultimately mobile application experiences.
On your opinion, personally, what is the application that you're more excited about that this technology can help?
Well, I get pretty excited about all the applications, from the high-end applications down to the very low-end applications. I think in 2024, the application that we're most excited to launch is the consumer robots, the sort of Roomba for your yard. The smart mowers is one that we put a lot of focus on starting in 2023. And I think it's one that's very well suited to the Geodnet network. So I'd highlight that for 2024. But we also have stuff in pure mobility on a roadmap. And then what we're doing in the traditional markets, which I'd call geomatics, like civil survey, architecture, engineering, as well as in agriculture, is we're helping, I think, democratize those applications to smaller companies, to make it where for example, in construction today, typically there's only one guy that has a survey instrument out there because they're expensive, or a few guys who can go and mark positions and things. It's not every guy on the crew, but by having lower cost instrumentation, lower cost network services, now everybody on the job site can have it. It becomes like a disto. I don't know if people are familiar with the Bosch disto, where you can do, measurements in your house without using a tape measure. We're trying to make RTK available in that field to be something like a Bosch disto. Anybody can have one in their pocket, flip it on, get coordinates, and go. So across the board, we're pretty excited. I mean, I've been working in this field that it may seem like a very narrow and niche field, but we think it's pretty important. I mean, accurate location is very, very useful. Our economy is very dependent on location, and I've been working on the field for my whole career. So it just gets me very excited to see that we can actually do something at scale. And I think that's the key thing that DePIN brings, is the ability to do this at scale, globally, across a wide variety of applications, and a simple, easy to use system for the end users of location-based products.
Yeah, I think touching on that case, what is I can imagine a lot of companies in the past try to build RTK networks. Like you said, of course, maybe they build their own in-house, let's say I want to, around the building, I want to have information about that in terms of sub-inch accuracy. I put my own RTK hardware there. But in order to build, let's say, a global RTK network, what is the main challenges that people faced in the past, or that and how does the Geodnet tries to help address those challenges?
Yeah, so there have been several strategies in the past, and there's an article coming out shortly in Inside GNSS that's going to really walk through those different strategies of the past and then compare it to Geodnet. So I'm excited about that. But to touch briefly, the first original strategy was there were no RTK networks at all, and there was no notion of a network. So a person would get a base station and set it up at the place they wanted to use it. Say, go out and find a clear sky location, set up a base station and tripod, put a receiver on it, and it would have a UHF radio link, not unlike a helium radio link, to a receiver. And then they could do RTK between the two. So the person could move around the location and get accurate coordinates. The thing is, you got to set that base station up long before the job starts. And if it moves for any reason, all your measurements are off. There's issues with the base stations getting stolen. It's not super convenient. And a lot of places you go to a job site and there just isn't a great place to locate base stations. But occasionally you'll go somewhere, like there's still a lot of folks in farming and in construction that do it that way, and in drone survey that do it that way, because networks haven't been available at cost-effective places and so forth. So another strategy that's been done is to set up a regional network. And this is common in Europe and in the US, that there are state level networks. They may or may not cover the whole state, but part of the state, and then the state will maintain those and typically charge a fee to use them. There are some states that do have free access to an RTK network, but those networks typically, don't provide, continental coverage or anything like that. And the other challenge is they haven't been kept up to date. Most of those networks don't have all the latest satellite signals. And there isn't a good way for a company making a product, say I'm making a mower, to kind of commission the mower so that it can connect to those networks, because they all have different login processes. Some charge fees, some want you to prove that you're actually a surveyor. They're really intended primarily for professional survey, because cities and states have a lot of people, and like the Department of Transportation and so forth, that need to do RTK on a daily basis. So that's the regional network strategy. So then came along some of the bigger Web 2 companies in the space starting to build networks. And a lot of them took the regional network idea and just sort of professionalized it. And because the equipment's very expensive and leases are very expensive, those networks, again, don't have complete coverage, but you can use them and they can be reliable, but they tend to be quite expensive. So a typical RTK subscription in a Web 2 network is, over $1,000 in many places. And like UK, I think it's close to 3,000. I've seen some of the networks in agriculture for the high-end providers up to 4,000. So it's quite expensive. And that's per year, per device. So if I have 10 guys, I'm paying that times 10, plus the equipment's been expensive. And that's been kind of the state of RTK going forward. As you look to some of the new applications, people said, well, that doesn't work. We need global coverage. We need stuff. So people have tried a variety of strategies to reduce the base station density with techniques like PPP and PPP-RTK. And that tries to say, put stations at a low density across a region and do fancier algorithms on the receiver in order to get to accurate position. And it turns out that strategy has some problems in that it puts a lot of stress on the mobile device to figure out how to do these more complex algorithms. And it's not as reliable against errors like space weather. So if the solar activity in the afternoon in the summer is higher, which it frequently is, it just doesn't work. And then that renders the person unable to do their work for that day. So none of these have been a perfect solution. The perfect solution is to go back to the original, which is, okay, get a base station, put it near where you're going to use it, and then you can reliably do the job. And what DePIN allows, and what's so amazing about this community, is the idea that we can do that at scale. Because of the DePIN model, we can set up a network, kind of one time. Of course, the network will continue to grow and refresh itself, but build out this infrastructure through the DePIN model so that everybody can enjoy a base station near them. And then all the issues of all the other strategies go away. You can commission a device globally to have high accuracy, and you don't have to worry about the performance so much and the complexity so much that it just works. And again, that's kind of the highlight of the DePIN, and that's why we say building the world's largest RTK network, to get it clear that we want to really do this at scale, or simply improving GPS accuracy at scale, because that's the experience that we want people to have. We don't want them to think about it or get confused about the technology. We want them just to turn on their device and enjoy really, really good accuracy and really good speed. Another thing I haven't highlighted about RTK is it will get you your location much faster. Maybe folks remember the days of the old Garmins that weren't network connected, that didn't have any kind of network corrections at all. Coming in, you would have to wait like 5-7 minutes for the device to figure out where it is. Now, steps have already been taken. People don't realize there's already network-based infrastructure in place, like some of our customers provide, who buy Geodnet data, provide services to the phone companies to help speed that up. And that's called like assisted GPS and things like that, that the first baby steps towards a global RTK network are already there. And so if you didn't have this assistance from a network, it takes forever for GPS to even find where you are roughly. And what we can do through a global DePIN-based RTK network is find exactly where you are instantly. And that's pretty exciting.
This episode is brought to you by Chirp, a wireless network that aims to connect the largest number of devices with the blockchain. Writing device data on-chain opens up many possibilities and new real-world use cases, and Chirp does just that through its community-owned wireless network. Chirp has been actively building during the bear market, and it's expected to go live this year, so your timing is perfect. Chirp network is already deployed in 27 countries by its early supporters, and it's backed by Milestone, the team behind the Sui blockchain. To become an early supporter, be sure to visit chirptoken.io and click on Become a Keeper. I like to think how the DePIN narrative is perfect for what you guys are trying to build. I think maybe even the only way that this can happen, right? Because it's too expensive and too complex if you're not doing with the power of the people actually climbing their roofs and installing the devices. And one thing that I really like about the Geodnet hardware is that it's a set and forget, right? You just buy the hardware, you set it up once, you plug it to the internet, and then you forget about it. And for the next years, you are providing really important value for a lot of companies actually trying to build. But maybe you can touch a bit about if I set up hardware in my own house, or everybody out there, the listeners, what's the benefits for them to deploy the hardware in their rooftops?
Well, I think that the first and foremost benefit for the Web3 side is obviously participating in the Geodnet project and participating in the growth of that. The tokens have utility to help expand the network. The tokens have utility, obviously, from a rewards point of view. And then, in the future, some folks may want to be beta testers of mowers and things like that, or buy a mower to use it and so forth, and services. And of course, if you have a station at your home, you're going to get the best performance for those devices of anyone because you're going to be so close to the base station. So I think those are some of the things that we're looking at. We do have some longer term thoughts on activities around geohazards and structural monitoring. So there's just a ton of applications for GNSS. We don't have bandwidth to pursue them all. But for example, here in California, obviously it's an earthquake zone, and there's, even my house is kind of moving around, and we looked at, reinforcing the foundation. It's quite expensive, and we're not sure, is it worth it or not? So a couple of RTK stations like on our roof can tell us exactly what's happening, because over time, you can observe millimeter level shifts, and you can see, is there seasonal shifting or is there something unusual going on? And this is a field of, a real application. One of the reasons governments set up RTK stations also is to understand actually where things are. Things are not stationary. The plates of the earth are moving. And GNSS is the fundamental technology that is used to observe the shifting of the plates. And you think where something is on an absolute basis, like where is this on an absolute basis? But actually where that thing is actually changing. And so when you look at how survey coordinates are set up, they're set up with a position and a time, and that's called a datum. And so the GNSS networks are used to establish these datums, to establish coordinate frames that can connect together, because actually, California is a good example. We're moving up and to the left. So we're moving, towards the Pacific Northwest. The entire Pacific Northwest is moving collectively about 4 centimeters a year. 4 centimeters is not such a small distance. You don't notice it because we're all moving, everybody in California is moving together. But if you're in, Arizona or Nevada, it looks like California is moving up and to the left. So this is the type of thing that a GNSS station can observe. And I think there's things that we can provide to people who run the base station over time that are also quite interesting and useful to the runners of the station. So it's a very interesting field. There's other things. There's signal interference. You can think of the GPS base station that's put on. It's a sensor. People always ask, what's the range or how far does it transmit? It doesn't transmit anything. It's a sensor. The only data transfer that goes on is through the miner to your Wi-Fi network. But out of the thing coming on your roof, it doesn't transmit anything. It is a sensor that is using all these satellites as, transmission points to make a measurement of the atmosphere. And so given a lot of the miners are receiving 38 satellite signals times 3. So there's 3 frequencies. Each satellite signal transmits on 3 frequencies. So that's roughly 75, 80 signals that are coming into that to that receiver. Guys in India and the APAC area are getting like 50. So it's like 150 signals coming in. And each of those signals has 3 measurements: a carrier phase, a code phase, and a Doppler measurement. So you're getting tremendous amount of data points. So now you're up to like 450. If you're in India, you're getting 450 data points on the atmosphere every second. And so it's
Super
quite a
precise.
useful, quite a super precise, super reliable. The governments of the world are maintaining the satellites for you. So they've built this incredible infrastructure to transmit these signals, and you are getting to observe all of that at your house. It's a really powerful system. It's a
That's
really
super.
powerful piece of infrastructure.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So if I want to use the Geodnet actually network, how does that work? Imagine I have my phone, and my phone is collecting like a latitude and longitude. Then have that information I send to your servers, because my measurement's gonna have an error, right? It's gonna have like all the atmosphere errors. I send to your servers, and you
Yep.
reply back with the correct location, right? Is that more or less the
It's
way it
not that
works?
complicated, actually. No, that's not. So it's more client side driven than that. So what would happen is your phone would tell the network roughly where it is, and a stream of data comes down from the network to you, and in a way that's privacy protecting. So you don't have to disclose your location exactly. You say roughly, I'm in Sao Paulo, and a stream of data will come to you. Your phone will use that data in order to correct the location. So the RTK algorithm typically, like 99% of the time, runs client side. Now you can do it server side if you want, just the way you described. You can run the algorithm that way, but typically that's not what's done. Typically what's done is that the location enhancement is done on the client side. So all that's coming down from the network is a customized stream of corrections relative to your location, but in
Awesome.
an approximate way. So it is not computed on the server side typically.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, I'm sold. Where do I need to go to buy a Geodnet miner?
So there are a number of distributors around the world that have the Geodnet base station hardware. You can start at highfix.ai. If you're in Europe, there's EU Geo and EasyNav, and a new distributor that will announce shortly is coming online to serve Europe as well. Fresh Miners is there for the Netherlands, Technostore for the Turkey and Middle East area. So there's a number of folks that can help you get started. And obviously you can go to geodnet.com to learn more. We're in the process of upgrading the website to make all the distributor links clearer and easier to find and so forth. But it's pretty easy to get started. You should also check the console map to see, is the hex that you're in empty? Is there a station there? If there is, take a look to see what the reward schedule will be. Obviously, as more stations enter into a hex, the rewards go down. But check that and check your location. Make sure you don't have big buildings and trees around you that are gonna interfere too much with the antenna, because that will also reduce your rewards. But if you've got a clear sky view, go for it and get a piece of hardware. It's a long-term project. This is a network that it's not a put it up, take it down. We want to run these devices for a long, long time, and so it is a little bit of upfront investment and work to set up, but expect to have that device there for a long time to come.
Yeah, that's amazing. By the way, I'm gonna put all the links for the where you're gonna buy the hardware on the description of the podcast, so don't worry about that. And yeah, I mean, I can see I set up my hardware at home, and it's very rugged. The whole setup is very rugged. Like I said, it's meant to last for a long, long time. And the best thing that I believe is it's the set and forget option, because you're providing service and utility without having to do something every day, right? I think that's very interesting. I also like to ask everyone to follow the podcast and like and everything, because we really need this to continue providing good service for you all. But Mike, you mentioned the maps, right? That people can go to the Geodnet Explorer, and one thing that I saw on the maps right now is this thing that you guys announced recently called super hexes. Can you tell a bit about what they are and what's the objective, and how does the rewards on the super hexes work?
Yeah, so the objective with the super hex is to improve coverage in areas that are not naturally getting coverage so easily through the Web3 marketplace. And the way to do that is to let the sort of figure out how to incentivize additional incentives to get those locations covered. In the field of RTK, there's a notion of what's called geometry, and you'd like to have these stations spread out in a kind of geometrically even way. I suppose the same is probably true for DY networks as well. And so we're using the super hexes to sort of try to incentivize basically station deployment in areas that are not naturally filling, and doing that through first a staking mechanism to kind of lock in additional rewards, to sort of balancing, okay, these stations are going to earn higher rewards. So we'd like to also try to, encourage people to stake tokens to kind of activate those rewards to keep the overall tokenomics in balance. Because I think that's something that super important for DePIN projects, to make sure that the pace of growth can be even and steady, and not subject to so many wild swings. I mean, crypto's wild, so there's no complete filter you can put on a wild market, but we are trying to look at this from a long-term perspective, and to do that, you really don't want craziness. So that's the logic behind the staking. And then the logic behind the rewards is that, different areas need extra incentives. Not every area is so easy to deploy, but at the end of the day, the network is much, much, much more valuable if there's even coverage. And this is a work in process. We need to do more, but the super hexes definitely provide an opportunity if you know someone in that, and you are able to set up a quick Craigslist or Facebook ad to find someone in that region. It's a way to definitely amplify your rewards, and at the same time provide big utility to the network to get this coverage. We've observed a really interesting thing I wanted to mention, which is that France has been a tough territory for all DePIN projects. You can look at every Explorer and you can see it doesn't have the density, and of course we have customers that definitely want to use the service in France, and we've even talked to some of the Web2 network operators, and they're like, well, France is tough for us too, actually. So it's just a tough place to get infrastructure deployed, apparently. So we've observed a really cool thing with the super hexes, which is that some of our Romanian community, which is definitely one of the early adopters of Geodnet, and we thank the Romanian community amazing for helping us get this project bootstrapped and started. They have, a family that's in France, and that is some of the people who are filling some of the super hexes, is actually, leveraging that, which I just think is so cool. I just think that is so cool that that's a way that word is not spreading, as the word is spreading through kind of an immigration strategy, which I just think that's what the world should be. People bring new ideas and new cultures to different countries and help grow something there. That's just, I think it's a very small example, but I think it's a really cool example.
Wow, that's amazing. I've been following you guys for quite some time now, and I would say that Geodnet is one of the best projects when it comes to really focusing on the demand side, right? Because the supply side, when you give tokens, sometimes is much easier to do, and that's one of the ideas actually of DePIN. But then projects really need to focus a lot on the demand side, and that's how you can actually build a sustainable long-term crypto project or DePIN project. And you guys also went to Vegas, right, during the CES a few weeks ago, or a month ago, more or less, the beginning of January 2024. Can you tell us a bit, how was that experience? I know you guys you did some partnerships like Demo, Power. How did you see like the demand side, and how was the whole experience of the conference?
Yeah, so we've been doing a really steady stream of Web2 events to promote Geodnet. We've been lucky enough to be featured in a lot of the traditional media, even including the sort of high-level institutional media like the Institute of Navigation, which is the most powerful and most respected, I shouldn't say most powerful, most respected sort of civilian news and development organization around the research of satellite navigation systems. So a lot of the earliest thoughts on what to do are there. CES is a show that is one of a kind, and it definitely gives you a glimpse into all of the applications that are facing the consumer that RTK can enable. So everything from flying cars to drone delivery to smart mobility applications, self-driving cars, small robots, all kinds of new augmented reality type experiences and virtual reality experiences that can potentially benefit from RTK as well. So a lot of stuff there. We had a great time with the Demo team at a couple of events. Their event that we co-sponsored, the happy hour, was super well attended. Geodnet was lucky enough to have a couple of its core customers attend with us. And then, the overall show, the atmosphere is just great. So we look forward to doing a big thing in CES 2025. I'm trying to rally other DePIN projects. So I'll make a plug to that, to create a DePIN zone at CES, because I think if we show the world what these different projects can do, I don't think much of the Web 2 world is aware of all the benefits of the DePIN model. And I think there's still a bit of stigma, if you will, around anything crypto related. And we're doing our very best to eliminate that, but we are just one voice. So I think if we can collectively descend on CES 2025, you have the audience of the whole world comes. Executives from every major sector and technology products are there. And this is a place, I think, particularly in the IoT area, we can really showcase what DePIN can do for traditional consumer electronics. So we're all in on that.
Yes, absolutely. I already marked 2025 CES edition on my calendar. And as with a DePIN Hub, Hotspotty, we definitely want to be there when we're part of that, because CES it's a breeding ground for getting people into Web3, into DePIN, right? Because people are excited, they're early adopter, they love gadgets, they love technology, they want to be part of this. But a lot of times they just don't know, they haven't heard about that. So in a lot of ways, we're still early. We still have a lot of work to do. And
Yes.
yeah, let's try to build this DePIN narrative inside of CES. And I believe we can have like a big booth and a big exciting event there next year. Yeah, let's try to make that happen. I think it's going to be awesome. What are the future for Geodnet? How can you see Geodnet coming up with the next like 1, 2, 3 to 5 years and so on?
So I think that this year we're working on completing the coverage of the network. There are some coverage gaps. So that's a big thing for us. So we'll be briefing out to the community more on how the SuperHex is going and what we can do to make them better. And near term, we're going to build out some of these applications that are a little easier to understand and see, and also will provide good revenue to the network. And then finally, I think the big thing that we're kind of in the planning phase for, and we'll see some announcements on, is trying to build out a mobile app ecosystem around Geodnet. And I should also not fail to not mention the governance. So we're building out a governance structure, a governance online presence to help guide some of these decisions that are network level decisions through an open process. So those are all the things that we've got planned. We're a small team. We're not a gigantic blockchain team. We're a small team, and we really that allows us, by being a small team, to focus as the data. But also, in general, we think that that's the way blockchain projects should be, really about connecting supply and demand together, not about building out a giant empire for themselves. Because If you do that, then it's quite tricky to get the economic utility to flow back to the token. So our goal is to be lean and mean, connect supply and demand, so that as that demand comes in, most of the benefit, the vast majority of the benefit, in our case 80% of the data revenues, can go back to support the token. Because again, it's really important to have this be as stable as possible. We can't make any guarantees. The world is an uncertain place. There are wars, there's craziness, there's market shifts, there's new technologies. We have no idea, but we think we have the best strategy that we can put forward to create a long-term growth platform. And that benefits everybody. It actually benefits long-term the people who take the time to set up a station, but it also benefits the Web 2 side. The Web 2 side, they don't want to see something that's a yo-yo. They want to see something that they can count on. It's important people bet their careers on decisions around what type of features and technologies to introduce to the marketplace. And if you bring something up that's a yo-yo to them, you know what? That's not going to work. And I think the community around DePIN has to understand that stability is super, super, super important to the demand side. And of course, there are things we can do on the back end to handle stations that inevitably go up and down. I mean, people move, that's reality. But what we don't want to do is create an incentive system or, a pump and dump type of thing, or a meme coin type of thing. They're cool and they have their place. Meme coins have their place in the crypto ecosystem. I'm not critical of them, but that model doesn't work for a DePIN project. It needs to be something, a structure and community that cares about providing a service that is reliable and trusted to the Web 2 community.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's very, very well said. Every crypto, there are many ecosystem. Each ecosystem has its own goals. But for Geodnet and for DePIN, it actually is building a sustainable business that companies can build on top of that, and not having to be worried about their infrastructure going down or the project, ceasing to exist, etc. But yeah, I think Mike, thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you here, and I'm very excited about Geodnet. I think it's on the DePIN narrative is one of the strongest projects, and you guys are building something that's gonna really impact, I think, a lot of people and technology moving forward, AI, autonomous vehicles, and much, much more. It was a pleasure to have you here today. Make sure everyone to check geodnet.com and for more information, check their blog. Also, if you go to deepinhub.io, have a lot of information about Geodnet. Buy their hardware, set up one in your house, and let's build this amazing network together. And yeah, let's go for it. Please also make sure to follow DePIN Hub and Hotspotty on YouTube and on Spotify and whatever you see or you listen to your podcast. Thanks so much, Mike. Thanks so much, everyone, and see you guys on the next episode. Have a good one.